Hi, everybody. It's Alex Jarett with Technology Executives Club, and I'm really happy to introduce our new Board of Advisor member, Tom Drez. Hi, Tom.
Hello, Alex.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing awesome. What
Glad
am I
to be
gonna do?
here.
Yeah, glad to have you
Yeah,
here.
thank
Well, I
you.
got to tell you, everybody, Tom, I've always been so appreciative of you. I think you are the number one contributor, I think, of just being involved. I think you and when you joined, you were one of the first one or two guys to join the peer advisory program.
Yeah, I think we've been hanging around together a long time now.
Yeah, and I'm
For the better.
grateful. I'm grateful. But I'll tell you, everybody watching this, I have learned so many lessons from you, Tom, just listening to you.
Mm.
I brought my notes here. I've just got a ton of lessons that I want to go over. I'm just kidding. So, no, but all kidding aside, if you go into, for those of you members, go on Technology Executives U, whenever you see Tom, just watch it because he's always got a few pearls, and I appreciate you and what you've done for us. So I know it's the same in your organization. So what we're going to do is talk a little about your background, your career, and lessons learned, and then you'll share, hey, here's whatever insights you want to share, and then areas you'd like to help people as far as the group mentoring goes. How's that sound?
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. Well, I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile, so everybody, if you want to follow along with me, go look at Tom. And Tom, what first I go way back, just teasing. So I go back. What was really intriguing to me right after high school was Lewis University, and then you went right to work, and you were right there, and you've had two jobs, but
That's right.
the first job was it's like microcomputer specialist at Dynotech,
Yeah, right.
Dyrotech.
Dirotech, right.
So
That
you
was
came. Go ahead.
yeah, that was a part-time job to help put myself through college. I stayed there a couple of years, a manufacturing firm. And then I found Christian Brothers Services, also owned by the Christian Brothers, as Lewis University is a school sponsored by the Christian Brothers.
Got
So
you.
I made the switch from the manufacturing company where I was, I mean, they weren't even called personal computers then. They were microcomputers.
I
That's
remember
how
that.
I used to spend my days formatting diskettes, 5 1/4 inch diskettes, and making cables back in, what is that, the early to mid 80s. And then while I was at Lewis University, I saw Christian Brothers Services had posted a job on the bulletin board, in the computer lab. So yeah, I said, okay, this building is located on the campus. I wouldn't even have to drive into downtown Joliet. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go for this job.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that was going to be for my senior year in college. I was also running for student government president. I said, okay, I'm going to take whichever one of these comes in first. If I get the student government president job, I will go with that, and I'll give up, working part-time my senior year. But as it turns out, I lost the student government election by
Ah,
17 votes. So I said, Christian Brothers, here I come.
that's a great story. You just think if we went back in time, like Back to the
Right,
Future, and we got those 18 people to vote for you, 17
right,
plus one to win. If we had
right.
just gotten that, what would we? You might be president of the United States today. We might be interviewing
Uh,
you doing that.
I've thought
But
about that many times, Alex. You can't dwell in the past, but it would have changed everything,
it
right?
would have changed
But
everything.
I have no regrets, none at all.
But I got to tell you, it's so rare these days to talk to somebody who really had you've had an outstanding career. And what's interesting to me is, I mean, you all look at Tom's background. Not only did you rise to the top of, managing director of IT and technology services division, which is actually a service to your overall Christian Brothers world community, but you were a CIO, chief privacy officer, chief security officer. You continued to learn and continued to rise the whole time, is what I'm seeing. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is accurate. Back in 1987, when I started, my degree was computer science,
Uh-huh.
and Christian Brothers Services was a much smaller organization. It was founded in the early 60s. So I've been here more than half of the career of the company. I'm approaching 37 years here at CBS. All
That's
the
great.
titles I have now did not exist back then.
I was thinking, just listening to you now and looking at your background, like now what a lot of people do is they're not all going for the masters and the more advanced degrees. What they're doing is going for these certifications. And it looks to me like, I don't know if you ended up having to get a master's. I mean, you had a brilliant career. You didn't have to, but you must have gotten certifications along the way to be able to be the CISO chief. How did
Mhm.
you do that? How did that work out?
Right. So when I came in at CBS, I started off right out of the gate as a computer services manager.
Uh-huh.
Back then, CBS, like I said, was a smaller company. It was 1987, Alex. So everybody had two things on their desk, a typewriter and an ashtray.
Yeah.
Not even a phone and a computer, right? There were a couple of dumb computer terminals around, and in some areas we connected to a mainframe somewhere along the line of a service provider. But you could say that I really was the first computer person, and at that time, Christian Brothers Services was time sharing a little bit to get some CPU power from another company, also owned by the Christian Brothers, that printed report cards for schools,
Hmm.
provided accounting systems for schools, because the brothers are teachers, right? So, things were starting to change back then in the 80s. So, as computer services manager, I really, I got to tell you, I never thought I'd be at CBS more than a couple of years, right? Like you
Yeah.
said,
Right.
maybe a stepping stone, move on and up. But a funny thing happened, as I was there, I grew and continued to learn, like you were saying, and the company also grew, and they did everything that they needed to do to stay competitive, and of course meet the needs of all their customers, right? So I think I just kept on learning. I would say I was a product of my environment. And if
Yeah.
you look here, I mean, right off the bat, I was put onto the management group, the management team. So, I'm dealing with managing directors of healthcare and property casualty and retirement plans that were, maybe towards the end of their careers, and I was just starting. So I sucked it all up like a sponge. I mean, what did I know? I was a computer science degree. I
Yeah.
knew how to write computer programs. I didn't know anything about health insurance or insurance overall or services or customers. Who cares about that when you're a student?
Yeah.
So I just tried to absorb everything I could. And, even after 2 years, 3 years, you start to learn a lot about, insurance and financial services. And the longer you are somewhere, you get to see the cycles. That's really the important part.
Yeah.
Month end closes, quarter end, year end. You go through a few of those cycles. You're at a company 3 to 5 years. You've seen a lot, you've learned a lot, and that's the business experience that goes on top of your college degree.
Well, what's really interesting, yeah, I like that. So that's very interesting. Plus, it was like you said, it was small enough that you were able to see the whole big picture. It's
It
not like it
really
was
was.
10,000 people and you were in one department. You had no idea how it all related. You saw the whole picture and you just said something I didn't know,
Yeah.
that you had actually were working with these people that were, the senior people for their respective departments. So you actually took the time, but a lot of guys in that situation wouldn't have taken the time or the interest to learn the business. They would have just said, "Tell me what you need and I'll get you the printout or something." Back
Right.
then, you actually
Well,
took the
and
time to learn the business.
yes, well, and I would say the company probably took a chance on me, right? I mean,
Mhm.
hiring a college kid right out of school and making him a manager, putting him on the full management team with everybody else.
Oh, that happened
But
almost
maybe,
right away.
oh, it did. Day one. Yeah, as soon as I graduated from college,
What was your job title
that
back then? What was your role?
computer services manager, because it wasn't even really called. I mean, the up and
Was
coming
it, there
title.
was no CIO. You were
No,
the
there was no
manager of
CI.
the computer department. Oh, I didn't know
That
that.
Yeah, but before that, they were called data processing managers or EDP, electronic data processing
Yeah.
managers. So we thought we were being very progressive by saying computer services manager. And yeah, CIO, chief security officer, chief privacy, none of these titles existed. Managing director of IT didn't exist back in 1980s.
So as business progressed, y'all got bigger and bigger. You kept learning the
That's right.
business.
That's right.
How did you become like certified in, like, I'm just curious. So
Yeah.
you're a CISO. You had to go get
Yeah.
certified for that to be able to call yourself that. right?
Actually, I did not. So for my chief security officer role, I did not get certified for that. For my chief privacy officer role, I did.
You had to for
Chief,
that. That's something
I
we
had,
had to. Yeah.
well, you
Yeah.
don't have to, but it
You
helps
did.
when
Yeah.
to be able to indicate that you have a body of knowledge behind you.
Yeah.
That does help. Back then, when it came to security, all the computer systems already had security, right? Everybody had on-prem systems back in the day, but you could still handle all the security and all the user profile management and all that kind of stuff. You don't need to be certified for that.
Got
It's
you.
only when
A
the
different
internet
world
came
today.
around.
Yeah.
That's right. Once everybody wanted that one pair of copper wires that connected them to the internet, now security goes
That was
beyond your
it.
four walls to the internet, and that changed everything. But by then, really, when it comes right down to anything, Alex, all somebody has to know, especially in a management role, is know your resources. Don't try to do everything yourself. Rely on people, pick good people, and get out of their way. There's a quote, Teddy Roosevelt.
That's a great quote. Pick good people and get out of your way. It's interesting that you say that because I'm sitting here. I've sort of thought of two or three notes as I've listened to you over the years and heard your wisdom. You've really stood out on two or three areas for me. One is you always do talk about people.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I know you're a people person. I mean, for those of you who don't know, Tom, he's very involved. My goodness, congratulations. You're the governor of Illinois for the Lions Association, which if anybody
Right.
doesn't know that organization, you should look it up. They do nothing
Yeah.
but good for people. They're
Right.
a fraternal, I think I'm saying it right, fraternal organization that does good for the
Yeah,
community.
all
And
volunteer organization worldwide, and they focus in on providing community and humanitarian services to those in need. That's it.
how could
100% of
that,
the money raised from the public goes back.
yeah, it's a
Right.
wonderful service, wonderful
Absolutely.
program. But
I
even
agree.
internally,
Hmm.
I got to tell you, I can't tell you how many people over the years, vendors, employees have come up to me and just said, Tom's such a great guy. They always bring you up. So
Oh,
that
wow.
speaks for something
Yeah, that's
in
very
a
nice.
nice
But I
way,
would.
by the way.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you're like, Alex, they
Well,
bring you up too. I got to talk to you offline.
I agree with that, Alex, right? I mean,
Yeah,
when you get right down to it, if you strip away all the business and all the technology or whatever anybody is doing and whatever their roles are now, life
yeah.
is relationships. I know with my
You
own
said
kids
that, yeah.
too. I am sure my wife taught my kids 99.999% of what they know. I just try to tell them life is relationships in person, not just texting and emailing and zooming around, but people, person to person, face to face. Life is relationships. And the more people you can meet, that's the more opportunities you have to learn and to grow and to build a network that you can rely on together. They can
So
rely on you and you can rely on them.
so you got someone watching this and that maybe they're starting, maybe they're in the middle, maybe they're towards the end of the career and they're thinking, oh, what am I going to do
Hmm.
next? But what are some tips? And you say life is
Hmm.
relationships, and I've
Yeah.
seen you, do that in person, but
Yes.
how do you look at relationships and,
Yeah.
and do you treat your employees differently or,
Hmm.
because, you've got that,
Sure.
like, what are your thoughts on that?
First is, hey, I'm an IT guy, right? That's how I
Yeah,
started. I would, when people ask me, I actually say I am an introvert. People don't believe me when
I
I
wouldn't
say
believe
that.
that. I would
I
not
am an
believe that.
introvert who has
Yeah,
forced myself to become an extrovert to further myself and business, right? Because life is relationships. It is
yeah,
people talking to each other. I mean, I don't. It's not like I'm making deals out on a golf course or something like that, But that's a form of relationships as well. But I
absolutely.
would say so. I look for all those opportunities to get out from behind this desk. I don't spend much time really in my office. Most providers that I work with, they've never even been in my office. I'm going to meet them out and about somewhere, but I,
Yeah,
I look for those opportunities. Technology Executives Club,
yeah,
perfect example, right? A
you were
peer
always
group,
there. Yeah,
peer group. We're not competing with each other. Everybody shares the good, the bad, and the ugly. And if I were to boil down what tech is,
yeah.
it's two things: relationships and content. Period. That's
Well,
it.
that's really
So
nice. Yeah, I'll use
yeah,
that short. So
yeah.
that's, but relationships, but the thing is about you, and I appreciate that you came to every event. almost every event that you could, either you or somebody else,
Mhm.
when we were
Right.
doing nothing but events, and it was awesome, and I'm grateful for that. And you shared and you spoke. But in terms of what is your sort of lesson learned in terms of dealing with people, that are internal, that work
Yeah.
for you?
Sure.
How do you, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, so relationships, people follow on relationships.
Mm.
People are your most important asset. It's like that chicken and an egg question for any
Yeah,
company is
yeah,
which comes first? You focus on the customer or the employee? I mean, you can make a case for both, but
yeah.
without customers, you're not going to have employees. So, yeah, I'm a big proponent of uh, coaching and mentoring and
I know you are.
encouraging
Yeah,
employees to get out and to learn and to provide for education. Of course, not all education can happen on company time. Everybody needs to have some personal
yeah,
responsibility and take it upon themselves to learn outside of the work environment as well. But as a chief, as a manager, those are chiefly responsibilities is to take care of your team that takes care of the rest of the employees in the company, and those rest of the employees take care of the customer.
yeah. That's great. Well, let's switch gears a
Yeah,
little. The other thing
sure.
that I've seen, listen to you, for those of you who don't, I've had the pleasure of listening to Tom talk about his business over the years also. And for somebody that started in as the head of what you call data processing, or
Computer
what was
services
computer
manager.
services. Yeah, that was kind of
Right.
forward thinking back then. You
Yeah.
know, you know, I've listened to your story, and um, you've done two major things that I've heard of, that we would do all these big conferences, and I would study Gartner and Avant and all these different companies, like what HMG, like what they were talking about at the conferences, and you were out there doing it. Like, number one, you did digital transformation. That's a never ending thing,
Right.
but you did it, and you actually did the whole shift to the cloud early on.
Hmm.
That was a big shift. I would say that digital transformation shift to the cloud, not just lift and shift, but actually shift to the apps to
Right.
the cloud, and some of the ways you were doing business. And the other thing that I've seen you do, which was intriguing to me, is that you actually opened up a service center to the Christian Brothers. You became part of your business was a profit center, right, or a service center?
Yes. Yeah, that's true. That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah. Right. So CBS, for everybody who doesn't know what CBS is, it's Christian Brothers Services. The website is
Uh-huh.
cbservices.org. And we focus on providing healthcare coverage, property and casualty coverage, retirement uh, services, plans, and consulting to Catholic organizations. And they're 200,000 employees. But we have services in our name here. So if anybody organization comes to us with a need, think of it as any management
Yeah.
or business type of need, we try not to say no. Right? We're a nonprofit 501(c)(3) organization. We
Yeah.
exist to serve Catholic organizations and the Catholic Church overall. So we try never to say no. And if it's something, even if it's something we've never done before, we try it. Like you just mentioned, we provide IT and website services now to outside customers. So it's not just, most people think of IT, it's an internal corporate
Yeah.
support division, right? Just an expense that needs to be managed. And that's true. There's always going to be IT expense management pressures.
Yeah.
But when outside customers are asking for assistance, well, we are a service company, so we say yes. How can we help? And try never to say no. And so that's great. And that's also a good experience for our IT employees because it gives us more experience. We see what our customers are doing. That keeps us current on what's going on out in the marketplace or out in the world. That's real world knowledge and experience that we
Yeah.
can also apply to the business units within Christian Brothers Services.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, you know, what I heard there was you're listening to the customers, and you're trying not to say no, and trying to be responsive. That's a very, you know, I've heard it over and over again from people that are experts saying this is what you need to do, but I haven't heard everybody saying we do it all the time. In fact,
Hmm.
I've heard a lot of people saying, boy, we can't get the company to act like that. We can't get the
Mm.
IT department. I had another interview with somebody who turned their IT department around. It was Bill. And he was talking about how when he took over IT, they call it the Department of No.
Right.
And he changed that. And you started off by making the Department of Yes, how can we do it? And I think that was very insightful. The other thing that I want to switch gears down then
Hmm.
switch to is um, knowing you've spoken for me on a lot of different topics, and you talked
Hmm.
about strategic planning, and you've talked about your project, uh, your uh, uh, your project management governance model, where you
Yeah.
have the committee, where you work
Hmm.
with the business and make decisions, and you've made it seem. I always told people, listen to Tom's presentation about how he does project portfolio management with the company,
Hmm.
because it was like textbook the way you created it. But I know just from talking to a lot of people, you made it look really easy.
Well,
Oh
it's one of
yeah,
those
this is
things that
all we do. We
evolves.
just have this forum. We have this committee that meets every month. It's not a big deal. I mean, when you describe it, it's like,
Yeah.
why is everybody all stressed out? How did you
Well,
do that? I asked you this once, and I think what you
yeah.
said, it was kind of the product of your environment, that everybody was
Yeah.
collaborative there. Is
Right.
that
Well, and even back at that time, I was probably already at CBS for 25 years or so, right?
yeah,
So I think mother necessity is the mother of invention, right?
yeah,
So, back in the old days, I mean, companies only have a finite number of resources for
right.
software development, people and dollars. And here at CBS, we have all these business units. Healthcare is half of our business. And then you got risk management services, property casualty, retirement, and then more. Everybody has priorities.
Right.
Here at Christian Brothers, everybody's sure we're one company, but every business unit is functioning on its own. They just share customers and corporate support divisions like IT, HR, finance, marketing, and communications. So, but as long as when the company is growing, right? And luckily here at CBS, we've always been fortunate enough to continue to grow as we serve our customers and work to meet their needs. That just means more projects come. And that's
Yeah.
even we're a buy instead of build organization, but we're into so many different things. We still have to connect all of our systems together,
Yeah.
rewrite the glue or put the plumbing together that feeds, for example, the website. When a customer logs in, hey, we treat them with one electronic relationship. They don't need to know that this information comes from 10 or 12 different systems behind the scenes. So we have to write all the glue that ties everything together, but then we're also involved in product searches. We're looking for a new policy administration system here or a new accounting system here. So we want to be involved in all of those right from the start. So there's a lot of different things going on. So when it comes to you call it the project portfolio, a lot of times that door right behind me over there, I'd have managing directors in here. Healthcare would come in. These are my 10 top A1 priorities.
Yeah.
And then after he leaves, then the managing director from property and casualty would come in. These are my 10. These are all A1s, not even 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 10. These are all A1s.
Yeah.
And
Come on.
not the
Yeah.
one business unit can't have all A1s, and then let alone all the business units. So you need some way, right, to prioritize these to help a business unit see how they fit in, how their projects fit in within their own, give them some ammunition to working with their own staff, right? Show them that these are not all A1s, and then put it in the context of what's going on across the entire company, because everybody's to a degree is competing for resources. Nobody ever, I don't care what company you are, even an IBM or a Google, nobody has unlimited resources. So everybody, and especially here, we're charged with being good stewards of our resources, working with Catholic organizations.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be wasteful of anything, not a piece of paper, not a 15 minutes of somebody's time, not anything. So what we did, just real quickly, is come up with a way where I didn't have to play King Solomon
Yeah.
with all the managing directors coming into my office. Wanted to create a process that was sustainable, right? And so what we did was, there's project requesters, business analysts in each business unit. When they write up a project and put it into the system, they can identify the benefits. So right there, that's it. Identify the benefit. And if your project goes for, I don't know, what is our strategic plan for the company has, 3 or 4 strategic objectives. Hey, if you're going to hit one of those objectives, big points. So if you're going to hit 2, 3, or 4 of those objectives, big points. That's going to bubble your project up to the top. One kicker is if you collaborate with another division. Healthcare wants to work with retirement because they both deal with people. Big project, big points for collaboration. And then there could be a whole laundry list of items from improving customer service to improving operational efficiency and effectiveness, lots of other points. Hey, you put that all in there. These projects just scored themselves and in order. No longer does one business unit have 10 A1s, and no longer does the company have 50 A1s. They all fall in line.
I know, and you put together a really elegant,
Yep.
very
Well,
elegant, a very elegant model. And sometimes the simplest models are the hardest ones to create. And I think
Yes.
you all did it.
I agree, because a lot of times people see IT as being, oh, you said Department of No. Another one is, well, yeah, they're going to work on this project, but they're always going to be over budget and over schedule.
Yeah.
Right. But a lot of times, and I don't think this is unique to Christian Brothers, a lot of organizations, the IT organization is tasked with building the plane while they're flying it. How often are projects completely written from beginning to end, right? Starting with requirements through specifications and test plans, development plans, and very rare. So, a lot of times we're building the plane while we're flying it. And, hey, if a project comes in from a business unit, they might say scope creep, right? As long as you're under the hood there, let's do this and that. It wasn't in the original idea or thought or plan. So, of course, it's easy for projects to fall off schedule. The challenge is, for an IT organization to put a box around that original request and don't allow the scope creep. Then you can end up on schedule and on time. And with projects being rated and scored, we call it here a business justification worksheet. Now now there's a lesson I've learned over time is, when you're a young whippersnapper coming right out of school, as I was, you want to apply the latest technologies to everything, because that's all that's what you grew up on. That's what you saw in my part-time jobs and at school. But you realize eventually that there are no technology projects for technology's sake. Everything, and I never even take technology by itself. Everything is a business and technology project. Even if we're running a wire.
You've always said that. Yeah.
Even if you're running a wire, that's not infrastructure. You're running a wire to a new desk because the company grew and needed to hire a new employee, and you got a new computer. We didn't just run a wire to run a wire. Everything can be traced back and should be traced back to the business need.
Yeah. I want to talk about, that's great. I want to talk about two different topics, and then we'll move on to the areas that you want to help people with. So first is customer experience. We've heard a lot about that over the years. It sounds to me like you were doing customer experience before we called it customer experience.
Yes, true. Yeah.
So what are your lessons learned about creating first of all, is IT involved in the customer experience for your companies, your customers? Are
Absolutely.
you part of that?
Yeah. Yes. Part of our mission here is to administer basically anything that has a blinking light on it. Right.
Yeah.
So that's, well, I can't point to a data center anymore because everything's as a service.
Yeah.
But that includes the data center, all of the voice and phone systems, audio, visual, and these days that's multimedia conference rooms, hybrid working, all of that, anything with a light on it. So that contact centers, that falls under our purview as well.
And that's part of the customer service for sure.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, when I started at CBS, there were 65 employees. I was the 65th, and now we've got 265, and we're in 4 office locations. That we had customer service, or if you wasn't a call center back then, but the agents, there was no such thing as voicemail, right? In the late 80s either. It was those little pink slips while you were away.
Yeah.
And when it came to customer service, the customer service agents, and they weren't called customer service agents back then either, they had those phones with the 6 lights on them. New call comes in, another light lights.
Yeah.
You pick it up, you press which light you wanted to talk to the customer on that line. And they had a clicker in their hand, count the number of phone calls that they took that day. There was no administrative dashboard, nothing counting calls. They did it by hand, which was pretty amazing. So fast forward to today, Right now it is called UCAS and CCAS, Unified Communications for the Business User and Contact Center as a Service. And now you mentioned it already. The new term, the new concept is creating customer experience
Yeah,
centers
overall. Yeah.
managed by professional customer experience manager. And that is where all your contact centers are are merging in on that. And it is night and day difference from where we are now to where we were back then. It's all focused on the customer and being able to provide that caller, or and I shouldn't even say caller anymore, right? A unit of customer service comes
Yeah.
in still via an 800 number. They come to your website, want to click to chat, they want to text in, they want to email in, and believe it or not, you can still get faxes from some customers. They find it easy to fax in. That happens too. Those are all units of customer service work, and you just need to be able to throw them all into a queue. Make sure you have agents that are well versed in handling not only the method of the contact from the customer, but the contents, right? Health, retirement, risk,
Yeah.
consulting. So it's getting very interesting. 20% of our employees here in headquarters are involved in providing customer service,
That's
whether
a
that be
lot.
as a direct customer
Yeah.
service agent or as a customer service supervisor. That is a lot. We're in the service business. We don't make anything.
Yeah. That's it. So you've always had customer service as part of the customer experience.
Right?
That's
I
what I'm
say,
hearing.
IT for a service-based business like us is
Yes.
the shop floor if you have manufacturing
Yeah.
equipment. That's how I equate it. That's how important
That
IT is the shop floor.
that's great. Good.
Mhm.
Let's get to one last topic and then we'll go
Sure.
to your areas that you'd like to, anything else you'd want to share in areas you want to help
Okay.
people with. So AI.
Mhm.
Look, Gardner said, we're recording this in the beginning of
Mhm.
24. Gardner said in 23 that 2023 was the year that everything changed. And
Mhm.
they said the reason for that was because all the work that had been done on AI came out, and the Chat GPT was released to the world, and it took
Mhm.
off. And I think it had the biggest adoption rate of any new technology. And Bill Gates called it the age of AI. And many people like Bill Gates and other people that should know about this kind of thing are saying
Right.
this is really a big deal, as big or bigger than the internet, as big or bigger than the cell phone.
Mhm.
So what is your take on all that? And so if you're the CIO, CTO today watching this, or even the director or
Yeah.
somebody that is shepherding the resources of the organization, how would you look at AI and how would you sort of approach that if you're them
Okay.
right
Yeah,
now?
sure. All right. So first of all, AI and machine learning, right, have been around for a long time. In fact, most companies are probably already using some AI, or some AI is tucked into
Hmm.
systems or services that they consume made by providers. Look no further than cybersecurity tools these days, right? Without AI to help being incorporated into some of these cyber tools that we're using to protect ourselves, our staff wouldn't be able to keep up with the amount of alerts that are coming in. I mean, I just saw a stat last week, Chase Bank. We already knew all the financial institutions are under attack all day, every day, and not only from your casual hacker,
Yeah,
but by the nation state actors.
yeah.
Chase last week said that they're getting attacked 46 billion times a day.
Oh,
Let that sink in, right? Talk about the internet bandwidth that goes into that organization and all the people. That is huge. So that's pretty crazy. So AI has already been here. What makes this last year pretty unique? I call it, and I didn't coin this term. It's a term. The consumerism of technology,
yeah.
right? Most times you've got businesses or IT organizations leading the charge to keep their eye on the marketplace and know when technology has become ripe enough
To
where we
start.
can use it to
Yeah,
solve business problems and provide customer service. consumerism of technology means the technology is starting in the hands of individuals. And they're the ones pushing, they're the companies that they work for. ChatGPT, this is just a form of AI, right? Generative AI.
Yeah.
And your big companies released it to individuals first. So companies even haven't had time to digest
That's a good point.
this.
Yeah.
Right. So this is the tail wagging the dog. The last time I could really remember this happening is when Microsoft Windows came out. Up until that point, we were all using mid-range computers, mainframes. We had computer terminals and PCs that emulated terminals with green screen text. But then what did Microsoft do? I mean, we all know Microsoft is very smart, but because they licensed DOS back in the day, and they put a free copy of Windows on every computer that everybody sold, basically. So Windows was in the hands of the consumers before it was in the hands of businesses. And of course, back then it wasn't mature. Microsoft's approach, and it works, is get the software out when it's good enough. So they made it good enough for the consumer, knowing that they would keep working on it so that businesses would eventually adopt it as becoming industrial strength and secure, right? And that's what happened. So, but that's consumerism. Like even with ChatGPT and it's everybody that's in that ring right now of generative AI.
Yeah.
Is it ready for prime time? No, but it's good enough where they put it in the hands of all these consumers. Now the consumers, they want to use it in the business.
They want it.
Yes, right. So and again, we're not unique here. I see AI in two pieces.
Yeah.
The first one is it is a personal productivity enhancer for individuals. No
Yes.
question about it. Even here at Christian Brothers, I would say in 2024, we will be teaching how to use AI tools as an end user to help employees work smarter, not harder, right? But
Yeah.
part of that, so just like we teach Microsoft Word or PowerPoint or Excel or any personal productivity tool, AI is just going to be another tool that we add. Your telephones, right? Your devices. We're going to teach you how to use AI. It's going to be incorporated into all your devices anyway. So we teach them how to get the most value out of it and teach it how to know when AI is like going awry, right? Because AI can still hallucinate. If you give it a prompt and it doesn't know the answer, sometimes it may not tell you that it doesn't know the answer. It's going to make something up.
Yeah, that's comforting.
Right. So employees are on the front line. We can't put AI in direct contact with the customer yet because it could still say and do some things that, are not fully baked. So that the employees become the front line. They have to know how to vet the results of AI and decide what can be presented to whoever their stakeholders or audiences happen to be. But definitely a game changer, a productivity enhancer. We're going to teach it like a productivity tool. The other part of the coin is AI. Now, remember, I told you we buy here instead of build.
Yeah.
So, we work with tier one top providers, whether they're making software that we consume or services that we consume. These are big companies. It's our expectation that their R&D areas and teams of people, thousands and thousands of people, they've already been looking at all the develops in AI and have been looking to see how they can best incorporate that into their product. I don't even know if this company still exists. Do you remember the old BASF? Remember their commercials on television?
Yeah.
We don't make the things you buy. We make the things you buy better.
Better. They're still around in some form.
That's what we're looking for because we don't buy. We work with good, solid companies because we know they're going to turn out continued generations of new software and new services, always taking into account those technologies that are ripe enough to help their products, to help their customers and their businesses. So those are the two sides of the coin.
I think that's an interesting insight, especially for a mid-size organization, which could be up to a couple billion, really, in this world. I see a lot of, second, third, fourth generation companies, and they got the ERP that was originally created by them, and they think it has the secret sauce in it. I think you've got to think about where the secret sauce should stay.
Right.
And I think all these companies are going to, AI is in your suite, whether you want it or not. It's showing up. It's showing up in Microsoft's products. It's showing up It's going to show up in all your ERP. It's showing up in Salesforce. It's already happening. So I think you have a good handle on it. Is use it for productivity. Gartner does say to start experimenting with it for innovation, and they had a wheel that I thought was interesting. I don't know if you saw Tom's presentation.
I did.
Yeah, it was good. They had that wheel that said, depending how risk averse you are, is where you should play. But I thought that was intriguing also.
I also look at it like, let me just add this. In the old days, even when we would buy software, sometimes companies would make little or a lot of enhancements to it to change it because they would think, oh, I'm going to add a feature that gives me a competitive advantage.
Yeah.
Eventually, that becomes an albatross around your neck because you can't take upgrades easily because you have to retrofit all those enhancements you made into the new system. Well, now in the age of as a service, nobody wants to modify any software. I say the CIO has become like a chef in a kitchen because you can make the case that IT by itself is a commodity, right? So IT is ingredients, whether it be this piece of software or that piece of software. What do chefs do? They take all their ingredients and they make the recipes. That's the intellectual properties, how you're going to put all of these pieces together. The chefs don't make the ingredients. They buy the ingredients. So we have all these IT ingredients. The CIO has to work with the business to be able to put them together. And that way you're not making any special enhancements, any modifications, and you let those as a service providers continue to turn out their software updates and you take them.
Well, all I got to say is listening to you and the people around you, you're a top chef. You figured it out, Tom. I don't know how they're going to be able to cook the meals when you're, in the next stage, but you've done a great job. And you've done a great job of sharing your insights with us today, and I appreciate that. Now, if I look at your Board of Advisors page, everybody should look at it, and it says that specialties and areas of interest include business and technology, IT risk management, relationships, adaptability. Now, you're going through you're shifting. I think you're actually retiring now, right? So by the time people see this, you may be there, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's another 8 or 9 days.
Yeah. So
we'll call it a career after almost 37 years.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And so how, if people are interested in feedback or help, what are some of the areas that you would like to help people with? Just because I know you like to give back and help. So what kinds of things will we be hearing from you?
I do.
Hearing about from you.
So I'm not looking for another full-time job, but I want to continue to meet people. I want to be able to talk to people. I want to continue to learn things, right? And if I can share some of my knowledge, any little bit of it that might be helpful to somebody else, I am glad to do so. And I mean, I even sent you. I made a resume. This is the only place I've ever worked full time for almost 37 years. So, but I made a little bit of a resume. So you can see what I've done here. And I would say my key areas of strength are just like we talked about, relationships. I've learned a lot about managing relationships, from IT to the business units, to providers, to employees. So I think that is, I would say that is my top strength. After that, it has to be not technology projects, business and technology projects. And we were talking about, project portfolio management. And obviously I have some specialty business knowledge as it relates to insurance and financial services, but business is business. It doesn't matter, what you happen to be selling or even making, even though I've never made anything. Business is business. And at the end of the day, you want to have more revenue than expense. And you want to have products that continue to grow to meet the needs of your customers.
That's
Thirdly,
awesome.
It is IT risk management. This was not something that existed way back when, right? We didn't even start focusing on risk management, and subsets of that include cybersecurity and privacy, really until 10 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, when regulations started to pop up like HIPAA to protect protected health information. But really, it's only in the last 10 years as governing bodies and regulations worldwide starting to crop up, because IT risks can affect the business, can affect public companies, right?
Yes.
That's why the SEC takes takes notice of this. So there are a lot more rules and regulations, that exist just in the last 10 years that did not even exist. IT flew completely under the radar screen, 25, 30, 35 years ago. So being able to look at business and technology and have that risk management component, so that risk management is baked into projects right from the start, is critical. You can't think about risk management, IT risk management, after the
That's a
fact when a
separate
project
thing.
has all been
Yeah.
developed. It has got to be baked in right from the start. And then the last thing is being adaptable. Look how much has changed over the last 37 years, quite a bit. And in 37 years, when I came in as a young whippersnapper in 1987, I'm sure some of the things that we did back then, some employees decided to retire, right, rather than take on these new challenges.
Yeah.
Everybody has to be adaptable. I've been fortunate enough to work with, 4 CEOs and CFOs that have come through CBS, managing directors from all the business units. I truly am a product of my environment. I've learned from all of them. And the number one thing is, especially in an IT organization, you have to be adaptable and flexible. Company needs and priorities can change on a dime based on,
We've seen that.
your
That's only
customers,
going to
right?
accelerate.
So you've got to be adaptable, and you've got to be, as CIOs, we're already change agents, right? Catalysts for change.
Yeah.
Looking for desirable business outcomes. So be adaptable. So I would say those are my top 4 strengths, Alex. I'd be glad to help anybody with any of those.
And that's awesome, Tom. And look, so here's my prediction. I can't tell you which coach is going to go where, because, this is the time of year in football where coaches change, right?
Right.
There's a lot of good coaches on the market, and I think you're one of them. I think you're one of them. Yeah. I think that somebody's going to watch this. You're going to talk to someone, and you may emerge helping some people either in a fractional way or a different, more maybe full time. That's up to you. But everybody, Tom can help. So don't be shy about saying hello. He's a great guy. I'm grateful to have you in our community, just to help people in our community. So feel free to connect. You see this, feel free to connect with Tom. I know he's a connector, and I know he'll help people. And the fact that you're willing to go out and give your time to the Lions Club for the next year, that's amazing. The fact that you're willing to do that. So congratulations to that. So thank you for being part of our community. Thanks for a great interview. I've really enjoyed it. Thanks for being part of our board of advisors.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here with Technology Executive Club and all the members.